Hey, good people. It's Monday. It's travel day. I'm heading to the Amtrak station to go up to DC for this sort of like mini conference for a project that I'm working on. There'll be a bunch of different organizations that are partners on this project that are going to meet up, and I'm really excited to see my colleagues. I'm not excited to travel. I'm never excited to travel these days. Oh, but it's like a necessary thing for work, especially as we're moving away from COVID and back to in-person convenings. There will be more and more. And it really is important for colleagues to see each other in person. I know, I understand the value of it, and I always enjoy it when I'm there. I just don't like the process of packing up and actually getting there, you know? So I wanted to pop on real quick. I have, in some kind of miracle, made it through 4.1 audiobooks that I wanted to chat about. And I also wanted to get recommendations from you all on audiobooks that you think would be good for me to listen to. So they have been frustrating, I have to say. They haven't been all wins. There have been portions of the audiobooks that have been wins, and then other parts where I'm like, what is the author thinking here? I don't quite understand this. But before we get into the audiobooks, let's talk about packing drama. I've shared in some travel car vlogs a little bit of the packing drama before. Like, I've shared the utter just frustration and exasperation that I feel trying to put clothing and makeup together for even like a 2-day event. It's absolutely ridiculous, and you would think at this point in my life that I would have figured things out. I'm reflecting back on that video with the soft life principles and really trying to say, like, what would soft life Veronica do with the packing situation? Like, what do I need to change and alter here so that this isn't this agonizing, stress-inducing experience every single time? I don't know that I'll ever be able to reduce or take away the entire stress of packing for an event. It just kind of is what it is. But I realized a couple of things. One is about the clothing aspect of things. As I get older and as we move out of COVID phase into whatever this new next phase is, people are a lot more casual than they used to be about clothing. I've talked about this in other videos. And so I don't really need to be thinking about dressing formally. And I'm kind of at that age in my life where I'm not worried about being cute. I'm worried about being comfortable and looking clean and put together versus looking chic, elegant, or whatever. And I know people have different philosophies about dressing. There are some people that feel like you should always look your best, be pressed and dressed to impress. Pressed and like your clothing pressed and be dressed to impress. But I'm at a point where I'm very happy in my career, very happy with my colleagues. I know they know me, and I know they know my work and what I bring, and I'm just not in that place where I'm feeling like I need to impress. Although I do want to maintain some sort of level of looking decent, looking, acceptable for work situation. So, for me today, because it's a travel day, that really does mean, gasp, dark jeans, like really dark, a dark blue rinse of jeans that are very clean and neat, not ragged, not tattered. They don't look, they're casual jeans, but it's a nice wash. It's a clean, crisp wash. And I just have on like a V-neck gray knit sweater. Very simple, very clean. And I've got my Keen shoes on. Y'all, people make fun of me for my Keens, and I just don't care. They're so comfortable. I'm going to be climbing up into an Amtrak train. I was smart enough to book business class. Business class on Amtrak is not bad, y'all. It's for the tickets to DC, it might have been like an extra $20 to $30 each way. That's not bad. That sure beats your, first class pricing for plane tickets and that sort of thing, which can absolutely like drive up the price astronomically on a plane ticket. So I was smart enough to do that. And then I just packed, honestly, black slacks, like stretchy slacks for both days. And I packed tops that were grayish, blackish in nature. So they went together. I've got a pair of little black booties in my backpack. I've got my Under Armour backpack. I'm not traveling with fancy luggage. I just kept it simple. And I've got, the other thing about the makeup is what I really want to get into here. I've gotten to realize that the makeup that I have traditionally set aside for travel, which honestly has been a lot of like sample stuff, things that come, little samples that come with your orders and things, and little mini sizes of makeup just don't cut it for me. Like, that feels, when I pull that box out of stuff that I have set aside that are minis and little travel size things. It feels like a bunch of disorganized clutter to me, and it makes my brain scramble. So I have gotten away from that. I need to figure out what to do with all of that stuff, because it's still good. Like I don't need to throw it out. It's usable, but I really need to bring, to the extent possible, full size stuff. Even if it's smaller stuff, like smaller in nature, like those Viseart eyeshadow palettes, I still need to bring reliable items that are actually full size, even if they're like compact full size. I hate this turn. I can't see around it. Here we go. We're going for it. So maybe I'll insert a picture or something of the makeup that I decided to bring, but I went with reliable makeup that's, fairly neutral, nothing extravagant, where you're just gonna get a decent look that's gonna like enhance your natural features, like what I have on now. This is a full face of makeup, but it's not dramatic. At least I don't think so. Maybe you do. But I've got the Viseart Cashmere palette on my, or Cashmere on my eyes. I've got Dior foundation, the Skin Forever Glow. Ooh, I love that stuff. The foundation on, and the concealer. Basic, lipstick. I've got some bronzer on, but I didn't do all the crazy cutting in and all that nonsense. Just a simple look. What do we think about the hair split down the middle? When I was younger and I would split my hair down the middle, people would call me Wednesday from, what is that? Is that from I want to say the Munsters, but that's not what the show is called. What the heck is the show called? Oh my God, I have completely forgotten. So anyway, hair, makeup, clothing routine down. Everything's inside of a backpack. As soon as I get to DC, I'm debarking the Amtrak, I'm hopping in a cab, and we're meeting at a museum first and doing like a tour of the museum with all the participants of the mini conference, and then we go into conference for the evening. So that's all of that. I think I'm getting better is what I'm getting at with packing, makeup, and all of those things. I've also decided that I'm just going to take my regular brushes. I used to have a travel set of brushes. I may still do that. I don't know. The problem becomes then I have all of these little travel sets of things because I'm not organized and disciplined enough to have just like one set. So I end up having several bags of travel things, and then I'm like, well, what did I put in this bag and what did I put in that bag? And it gets a little bit frantic, and then like that defeats the whole purpose of not stressing out. So is it less stressful for me to just grab the full size stuff like of deodorant and toothpaste and whatever, if you can? If you're not traveling by plane, that becomes a whole nother beast. Y'all, this travel stuff, all the travel that I've done, I still haven't quite figured out the right system, but I'm getting better.
So I'm filming from the hotel bathroom, and in terms of the makeup that I brought, I actually kept it simple, but I did bring some faves. So let's talk about the sort of bigger important things, the anchor products. I went with the NARS Laguna bronzer in matte. I like that it's a bronzer that really works regardless of whether you have a cool or a warm look going for that day. A Sephora blush that is more like corally in nature, and it has two parts to it, so you can swirl them together, or if you want it a little bit deeper color, you can use that side or light that side. This is the Viseart Mink Set palette, and it's got some nice warm tones. These are a little neutral. I did that yesterday if you want to stay like in that top row, but there are also some other warmer colors, and you can use this darker brown as an eyeliner if you use a small brush like this one here that has that kind of tip. I use this to make that shadow my eyeliner. Brought my big fan brush and some of the brushes that I rely on sort of day to day. Lip liner, I was looking for products that were trusty and that I knew would look good. This is the Huda Beauty Warm Brown Lip Contour 2.0. Awesome lip liner, stays put for a decent part of the day. I'll show you what happened with my, but I did bring the Pat McGrath Dark Star Mascara along with the Kosas Air Brow for my eyebrows. Brought my eyelash curler, and these are old faithfuls that I know work well. The Infallible 24-Hour Fresh Wear Foundation. This is in the color 480, which is the darkest one I have. I actually need one shade darker than this because I am self-tanned right now. My Pat McGrath concealer. I like that the concealer is a bit of a darker color than the foundation, which is not typical. Usually people go with a lighter color, but every once in a while I like a shade darker than the foundation because in a professional setting, you guys, this actually looks more natural on the face because your under eye part is naturally darker than the rest of your face. So in this case, I'm working with it, except taking away sort of the excessive, darkness and just keeping it a shade warmer, if you will, and darker than this. Some lip products. This is Raw Chocolate Matte 560. Is this the Maybelline line? Maybe it's Maybelline. Yes, it is. This is a nice warm shade that isn't too into the sort of orangey red direction, and it goes well. It looks janky, y'all, but it's great on the lip. I just woke up, so my voice is a little bit deep. Makeup by Mario's. I forget what these things are called, but this is in the Apricot Glow, the Plumping Lip Gloss. And this is another one that when your lipstick fades during the day and you just want to have some moisture on your lips, I usually will pull out something like this. And then for the fragrances, I bought DKNY Stories. I haven't worn this in a long time. And then the Bottega Veneta travel spray. I didn't bring the full bottle. I bought the travel spray. And I wore that yesterday. And I have to say, maybe this was a little bit bold for a conference setting that is a little bit more casual in nature. Like I wasn't dressed up in a suit or anything, but it was fine. And I did not overspray. I maybe sprayed like 4 times. And 2 of those were on my legs. Okay, maybe 5 times. 1 on the front of my legs, 1 on the back of my legs, a couple times around my neckline, maybe 6 times, because I did do the back of each hand, and that was it. And I didn't touch up, and it actually lasted me most of the day. Now you'll see later why it's so sad that I brought my my nail color.
So let's get to the books quickly. I wanted to just share a few notes. I've been disappointed, you all. Well, first of all, I started to listen to Pillars of the Earth, as I shared before. I'm still, you all, on like hour number 5 or 6. I think the last time I talked with you all, I was on hour 4 of this 30 to 40 hour audiobook. This thing is like the Odyssey. This is like the Odyssey. It's so long. And it's thick and it's good literature. Man, is it really fantastically written, but I gotta really pay attention. So I have to be in the mood for that. In the meantime, I thought I'd take a break and start some other low cognitive lift novels. Low cognitive lift. And I guess is it called modern literature if it's written today? I don't know. I'm way out of the literary world. It's been a long time since I took a literature course, and I don't even know what the genres are called these days, but modern, casual writing type of literature. And so I'll start with a book called Mad Honey, which, gosh, this is by Jodi Picoult, who wrote My Sister's Keeper, I think is the name of the book, and a bunch of those kinds of books that really tug at the soul. I found that this book had so much potential without getting into mega detail about it. There are 2 narrators in the story. The mother of a son who is dating this young woman somewhere in a town in New Hampshire. It's a story about how the mother, there's a couple of the books that I've picked lately, I have unknowingly picked books that have themes of domestic abuse, which bothers me. I have a really, really difficult time not wanting to reach into the novel and like obliterate these fictional characters that are causing other characters harm, that are being nasty, mean, cruel bullies to others in the novel. So I have a really difficult time because I go to literature to escape, and escape in a good way, in ways that make me wonder, think. I don't mind feeling emotion when I'm reading or listening to literature, usually listening. I don't actually read these days, y'all. I don't mind feeling strong emotion, but I don't want those emotions to be rage and anger. Then because I'm usually listening while I'm driving or putting on makeup, and then I'm just like furious when I'm otherwise supposed to be relaxed, So in Mad Honey, there are themes of domestic abuse that weave itself through this 2 narrator tale approach. And Jodi Picoult, I haven't read her other works, but I understand her to be a really masterful storyteller. This was my first one of hers, so I was really looking forward to this well-woven together story. And in some ways it is, and in other ways there are so many like corny, contrived aspects of the storytelling. One of the themes of the book has to do with the girlfriend in the relationship being transgender. And I'm sorry if that ruins it for you. Maybe I should have spoiler alert in the title or something, which is not the problem. The problem is that the author gets so pedantic about her explanation of transgender issues. It's like she literally brings the narration, the tale of the story to a halt, at certain points and spends what's probably the equivalent of 5 to 10 pages in the actual book explaining various aspects of what it means to be transgender, what the medical aspects look like, what surgeries look like, and all of that. And I'm talking about in great detail, where at those moments it's like the book takes a departure from the story and becomes a documentary about being transgender versus about the story. And I just kept wondering, gosh, there's got to be other ways to get the same points across about what the narrator is feeling and thinking and struggling with, other than literally pausing the storyline to insert these almost like lectures to the audience about various aspects of a transgender journey. So that really bothered me about this book. I thought, gosh, that could have been more masterfully told. And there are aspects of the story that are really cool. Like, it's called Mad Honey because one of the characters is a beekeeper. And so there's pieces of that woven in. Anyway, yeah. So this book I would give a C- because of the way that it gets super pedantic in certain places. And I dare say preachy in ways that it just really didn't need to. I didn't know the subject matter when I picked the book. In fact, I don't remember why I picked the book. And the subject matter is absolutely fine by me, but the storytelling aspect was just, it was poor. It was poorly done. So that gets a C-. And I got angry at the end that I had invested all that time in an author that I thought was really going to deliver just a better woven together, more fluid story. So let's go on to Balzac and the Little Chinese Seamstress. Oh my gosh, what a delightful story. I'd had this one downloaded in my audiobooks for forever and just never clicked on it. The image on the artwork for the book shows the feet of the little seamstress in these little red shoes. I think it's little red shoes. Anyway, this one started off where the narration bothered me. The voice of the narrator just kind of irked me. And I thought maybe I want to click out of this. And I gave it like 30 minutes and then got hooked into the story and was like, my God, this is really good. It's the tale of these two workers that are young. I would say they're in their maybe late teens or early 20s or something like that, working in communist China on a hillside. And they are supervised by a foreman that makes them work. And it's disgusting work. I won't tell you about the work. You gotta listen to it. It's like, it's so nasty. And then there's this Chinese seamstress, a young girl who is the daughter of a seamstress male. Oh my gosh, what is the name of that? A tailor. And she's a seamstress. So it's like a tale of hard work, drudgery. It's a tale about communism and the effects that it has on culture. It's a tale of trying to escape your circumstances. It's a tale of love. It's a tale of wondering. It's so cool, all the themes that pop up in the 5 hours or whatever, maybe 6, that I listened to this book. Super duper cool, well written, nicely woven together, tight storyline, really clever characters. And I give it an A. It was really, really good. I enjoyed that tremendously. Okay, so I'm going to try to finish up my notes or thoughts on the other 2 books. So the conference has been great. I just have some really cool colleagues and I enjoy seeing them. I enjoy the work that I do. So it's good to be here, but I definitely am ready to go back home. I love being home. As I've said in other videos, I'm such a homebody. I've got ink on my fingers. My nail polish is falling off. Look at this. That's embarrassing. And I brought the nail polish with me, but I'm just too lazy to put it on. I think we have like a half day tomorrow and then I get back on the train and go home. The next book is called Allie and B. Allie and B. This book was probably the least rigorous in terms of the writing. It was the simplest. It was almost like a Hallmark movie, but just in book form. It would have been a light read. It was a light listen. And it's the story of an elderly woman who gets duped out of her money from like a scam phone call, someone pretending to be like a tax agent or something. They wipe out her bank account. She doesn't have any money to pay her rent. And so she ends up homeless and decides to live in her van. So she says, I'm going to go on an adventure. She takes her cat, she gets in the van and she goes. She's a spitfire of a lady, a really interesting character, although a little bit forced in terms of the character development, a little bit predictable after a while. And she runs into a girl named Allie. So B is the older woman, Allie is the younger girl. And to make a long story short, Allie's parents end up getting charged with tax fraud, and they go to jail, and she ends up in like a juvenile home because she can't go into foster care just yet. They don't have a spot for her, and all of this stuff develops, and she ends up getting like taken to be sold into like, look at this is craziness, some kind of sex trade or something. So before she even makes it to that, she escapes from the person who's transporting her and runs out into the road, and the other woman, B, the older woman, the elderly woman, nearly runs her over in the road. And so she's like, oh, I have to escape. So she goes into the van with the woman, and it becomes the adventure of the two of them getting to know each other. It's a little bit cheesy, way overdone in terms of like the theatrics, and the narration gets a little bit old after a while. You do enjoy the characters. They are kind of cute. It's cute more than anything else. And I would not recommend that unless you just have some time to burn. Like, it certainly wasn't one of my favorites. I didn't mind listening, but it got a little silly after a while. So, and the characters, like I said, were just a little, I get bored when the characters are predictable. They become like caricatures instead of characters, a little cartoony. So that was that. And then I literally today, on the break from the conference, finished a book called The Great Open? No, it's called The Great Alone. The Great Alone by Kristin Hanna, I think is her name. And she's like a New York Times best-selling novelist. So again, I didn't know what the book was about. I don't even remember why I chose it. I think I just liked the cover art for it, and didn't realize that once again, I was getting myself into a situation where the novel has very strong themes of domestic abuse. However, despite that, I will say this is a novel that I would recommend. The premise is it's a mother, a husband, and their daughter, Lenny. Lenny's the main character of the book. The husband is a Vietnam veteran, has post-traumatic stress disorder, is a conspiracy theorist, wants to get away from the modern world and like go live out in the wild and hunt his own food and all of that. He has the opportunity to go to Alaska and has a cabin up there from one of his war mates, like fellow soldiers, who I believe passed away but left the cabin to him. I don't remember the details. Anyway, the family goes up to Alaska and they settle onto what they call the homestead. And so the novel becomes the story of their settling in wild Alaska and falling in love with the landscape, learning to live off of the land, learning to build community with the other people that had settled in this area of Alaska, many of whom had gone up there to get away from the modern world. But the husband is grossly abusive. Anyway, without giving away a lot of the novel, there are parts of it that really touched me, that I just found really romantically written. And I don't mean romantically as in like romance. I mean the language, the prose, the composition, the writing style is really, really pretty darn good in some places. And then in others, it's like the author's stretching or trying too hard and gets a little long in the, not long in the tooth. That means you're old, doesn't it? It was long in the tooth. She went on too long about certain parts, like dragged the story out in certain places. There are some parts near the end of the novel, not quite at the end, I would say like the last quarter of the novel, that get a little bit overdone and quite frankly a little cheesy. But she brings it back around in the end. And it's a book that made me smile. It made me angry. It made me wonder. I could visualize where they were on the homestead in Alaska. I could see their entire life unfolding, how life had changed for them. The townspeople, all the little character development is really cool to see. Not the most profound writing ever, but pretty darn decent for modern day writing. And it tugs at your heartstrings. I cried at the, near the end of the novel. There were some parts that just, the ugly crying. I had some ugly crying. There were parts of it that dragged on a little bit too long, and I forgive it for that because overall the story itself was pretty compelling and interesting. The actual audio narration, parts of the way that the narrator did the characters, they were like, there's a lot of whispering for some characters and some overdone accents in others, and a lot of just like this forced voice type of thing that got a little annoying after a while. But I tell you, all in all, I'm so glad that I actually did stick it out. I got really, really attached to the main character, Lenny, and, was rooting for her to have a happy ending. I can neither confirm nor deny that she had a happy ending. In some ways she did, and in other ways she did not. Uh, so interesting. So I got really attached to the town's characters in that novel. So there's like post-war themes. There's themes of like the poor versus the rich. There's themes of like the rich, throwing their money around to make changes that others didn't want. There's the whole like Alaska, the wild, the painting of the scenery and all of that. Really, I would say check it out. That's one I would recommend despite the flaws. If you are okay with some of those flaws, it was definitely one of the better listens and one that hooked me. Like I was very interested to know what happened to all the characters, to the point where I would take my phone in the shower, like in a protected case, just so I could keep hearing the story, because I wanted to know, like, what happens next? What happens next? So really, really good. I want to check out a book called The Nightingale. I think that's what it's called. And it's also by Kristin Hannah. So yeah, have you heard of any of these, and have you listened to them or read them? Would love to hear your thoughts. And I would love your recommendations on really good, really gripping. I want some gripping, dramatic novels that don't have themes of abuse. I'd like not to get angry about someone getting physically hurt in the next one. But I like a really well-developed storyline with characters that are just slightly beyond believable. Like there are believable aspects of them, but there are some aspects that are just on the other line, like into the fantasy world, that I think could be fun. So I welcome your recommendations. Like what would you suggest that I listen to next? And if you know of a particular narrator that's especially engaging and does the different character voices really well, let me know the name of the person and I'll look some audiobooks up by the person's name, because that's important too. I had one really amazing narrator. It was for The Parable of the Sower. What a good book. The Parable of the Sower, depressing dystopian novel. I talked about that, I think, in my last audiobooks update. The narrator for that was fantastic, but you could hear like her spit in her mouth as she was narrating, and that's a big no for me. I can't stand that. However, the other aspects of her narration, her tone, her delivery, her pacing were really phenomenal. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. I am going to sleep. I'm going to get this makeup off my face and get myself in this bed here. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much for letting me share my thoughts with you about my latest audiobooks. And I look forward to your recommendations. Take care, friends.